Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video in Azure Data Factory playlist. So today we are going to learn about how we can able to migrate our on-prem SQL Server data to our Azure Data like Gen2 or some other storage with the help of Azure Data Factory pipelines using the copy data activity. So let me walk through the flow that we are going to perform today. So in this use case, we have an on-prem SQL Server available for us in my Windows, and I'm going to use the Azure Data Factory to configure the copy data activity to migrate the data from our on-prem SQL Server. So first thing, we are going to create an SQL Server login to perform SQL authentication in this copy data activity, and we are going to migrate the data into ADLS Gen2 account with the help of EDF pipelines. So we are going to use SQL authentication for those configurations. So let us get into the SSMS and create our login for the database, and let's configure that in Azure Data Factory for the migration. I am inside the SSMS, so I have installed the Express version of SQL Server. So I have an Windows authentication available for me. So let me connect this server. So if you have installed Express setup in your local machine, then you must need to enable the SQL authentication for your SQL Server. So you can just log in with your Windows authentication and follow these steps to enable your SQL authentication for your SQL Server. So once you have connected your SQL Server, so you can just right click on the server. So you can just go to this properties. So under the properties, you can see the security settings available for you. You can just click on the securities. So by default, it is in Windows authentication mode. So you can just select this SQL Server and Windows authentication mode and just click on OK. So once you have done this, you just need to restart your SQL Server. So once you have restarted your SQL Server, you just need to log in with your Windows authentication and perform a login to creation. So you just need the required permissions to create a login. So you can just click on the login and you can just click new login. So this will allows you to create a new SQL authentication for your database. So you can just click on this SQL Server authentication. So let me provide the login name. Let me provide as admin SQL login. So let me provide the name as SQL admin, and let me provide the password for the login. So once you have provided this, you can just uncheck this enforce password policy, and you can just create this. So once you have created this login, you can just disconnect this server and try to connect with your SQL authentication. So in this authentication type, I'm going to select the SQL authentication. So you can just click on SQL Server authentication and you can provide the login name and your password. Let me provide the password and click on connect. So now you can see I have created the SQL authentication for my SQL Server. So now you can able to access all the databases with the help of your SQL login. So if you need to provide access for a particular database, you can just also do that. Let me disconnect this. Let me log in with the Windows authentication. So in this, let me logins. Let me create a new login. Let me provide this as test db user, and let me take this as SQL Server authentication and provide the password. So once I have provided the password for this user, let me go to this user mappings available in the sidebar. So in this it will list all the databases available for me. So in this I'm going to select only the test DB, and I'm going to provide the DB owner access for this test DB user, and let me click on OK. So now the user has been created. Let me disconnect and just log in with the test DB user. Let me provide the username as test DB user, and let me provide the password. Let me click on connect. So now I have connected the SQL Server with the test DB user. Here let me expand the databases. So I can just expand the test DB. So I have provided the access for this test DB for this particular user. So when I try to access any other databases in this server, it just throws me an error that the database DB is not accessible. So you can also provide the access based on the DB level, and you can also provide the access for particular read and write permissions. So as I have provided a DB owner access, I can able to read, write, and edit any of the entities in this database. So once you have created this SQL user, we can just get to the Azure Data Factory, and we can migrate our data from the SQL Server to ADLS Gen2 account. Now we are inside the Azure Data Factory. So let me go to this author tab. So first thing, we have created a SQL user for our SQL Server. Here now we are going to create a pipeline to migrate our data from on-prem SQL Server to ADLS Gen2 account. So under this pipelines, I have folders. So under the SQL Server, let me create a new pipeline. Then just click on the three dot and click on new pipeline. So here let me provide a name for the pipeline SQL Server authentication. So inside this, let me drag the copy data activity. So the copy data activity in ADF is used to copy the data from one source to another. So let me change the name as copy data from SQL to ADLS. Let me go to the source, and under this let me just quickly create a new dataset. Let me click on new, and let me filter out the SQL Server. So here you can find the SQL Server. You can just click on this and click on continue. Let me provide the name for the dataset, ds underscore SQL Server authentication. So let me quickly create a new link to service for this. Let me click on new. So once you are here, you can just rename this link to service SQL Server authentication. So once you have provided a valid name for your link to service, you can just select the integration runtime that you are going to perform. So as we are going to migrate the data from on-prem SQL Server, we are going to select the self-hosted integration runtime. So this is nothing but an integration runtime which is helpful to move your on-prem or local data to the cloud. So I have created and configured this self-hosted integration runtime with my Azure Data Factory. So if you don't know what is self-hosted integration runtime and how you can able to download and configure it with your Azure Data Factory, so I have provided a separate video to configure the self-hosted integration runtime. Let me pin that in the comment and add that in the description. You can check that video to configure your self-hosted integration runtime. So once you have provided a name for your link to service and select that the integration runtime, you can just scroll down. You can see the server name. So I have the server name over here. Let me just copy this. So let me provide this. Let me provide the name of the database, test DB. So here I have selected the SQL authentication type. You can select any of the authentication. So as we are going to perform the SQL authentication, let me select this and provide the name of the user, which is testdb user. So once you have provided the username, you can just provide the password. So once you have provided the password, you can just select the encryption as optional, and then let me just click on test connection. The test connection is successful. You can just click on create. So this will actually create the link to service for you to connect your on-prem SQL server. So now we have created the link to service. So in this dataset, let me just drop down the tables. So this will list all the tables available under my test database. So from this, you can just select any of the tables that we are going to move to ADLS Gen2 as a files. So let me select this employee table, and let me click on OK. We have created the source dataset. Let me go to the sink and let me click on new dataset. Let me click on this Azure ADLS Gen2 storage and click on continue. Let me select this CSV files as my destination. Let me click on continue, and let me provide the dataset name as dataset SQL Server table employee. So here let me select the existing link to service. So this link to service has been configured to my Azure ADLS Gen2 account with the help of account key authentication. So here let me provide the file path under the sample container. So inside this output folder, I'm going to place this employee file. So let me click on OK and provide the name for the file as employees.csv. So let me click on this first as a header, so it can provide the column name as headers, and as this is not available in my path, let me click on none and click on OK. So we have provided the source and destination for our copy activity. So we are going to migrate the employees table from our SQL Server to ADLS Gen2 account as CSV files. You can just click on validate. So there is no validation error. You can just click on debug. So this will actually just test run the pipeline. So you can able to run the pipeline using debug without publishing the changes. The pipeline has been run successfully. So we have migrated the table from our on-prem SQL Server to ADLS Gen2 as files. So totally 10 rows has been read and written into our destination. So I hope this video is helpful for you to understand how you can able to migrate your on-prem SQL Server data to ADLS Gen2 account using the copy data activity with the help of SQL Server authentication. So if you find this video is helpful, please share with your friends and please subscribe to the channel. Please watch all the videos in the ADF playlist. Thank you for watching.